working. There we go.
Shall I make a noise while you're reading, just so you'll know that this is being taped? Someone will think you've got a blind kick there.
Yes. Oh, what kind of functions were policemen required to patrol, like dances or parades?
There's a city ordinance that any dance has to have a police officer in attendance, and you'd pay extra for a police officer, and we'd work that as what is known as an extra detail.
So in the 40s, was there any that stand out in your mind that you attended?
Yeah, the first one I went to was a Polish wedding, and I was 21 years old. I looked much younger in the uniform. And it was at Old Foresters Halls in Newton Upper Falls, which is another work section of the city. And that was like being out of the world, because this was a totally encapsulated area, a great deal of Polish, Italian, and Irish. And this happened to be a Polish wedding, and they're known for having some very fun type weddings. And they make a lot of noise, a lot of dancing, they have a lot of fun. And as I walked in, as a result of a complaint of noise by one of the neighbors, there was this huge, great big man there, and he turned out to be Polish. And he picked me up under the armpits and held me up and says, "What do you want? A drink, a sandwich, a chicken, or a girl? You feel like dancing?" I said, no, you're making too much noise. And he put me down again. He says, "What?" I said, "The neighbors are complaining you're waking up the babies." Well, now, I could have gone in the macho carpet and says, "Cut out the damn noise," and I probably would have got my head caved in, gently but caved in, and I just said, "You're waking up the babies." Well, now, there's not an ethnic group in the world that wants to wake up a baby or to offend the mother of that baby. So he says, "Now, just a minute," and he whistled, get everybody's attention. Then he picked me up by the hips and held me up so everybody could see me. He says, "You tell." So I said, "You're waking up the children in the neighborhood. Could you tone down the music and please keep it quiet?" So they all agreed that they would, and they were from that on very, very, the most genteel group of wedding enthusiasts that I've ever seen. And I realized at that time that my size was not going to stand me in good stead, because I wasn't that big. And I've been more or less approaching everybody with a conciliatory tone, such as, "Don't wake the baby." And it's been very effective over the years, because I don't think there's a person that's crummy enough in this world that wants to wake up a baby just for their own fun.
Were there a lot of different ethnic groups in the neighborhood at that time? In West Newton?
West Newton was mostly Italian and Irish. Northampton was Italian, Irish, and French, but the French were very low-profile people.
Could you single out one group as committing more of the crimes?
No, there was very little crime in Northampton by either the Italian or the Irish. About the only thing is during the Depression, both sold alcoholic beverages so they could pay off their rent or their mortgage. Now, that was a crime, but you'd have to almost ask your grandfather about it, what kind of a serious crime it was. You read the romanticized mafia stories about bootleggers and all of that, and people getting killed. But
my grandfather was on.
No, your grandfather was Italian. That's all he was. And if
he wasn't in mafia, he was a bootlegger.
He was a bootlegger. Some of my best friends were when I was a child, and but they were feeding their families. They were paying their rent on it. But crime we didn't have down there. We didn't have too much to steal. As I said, there was always a mother home, so you wouldn't walk in on a lady and try to steal her. Well, you wouldn't steal a radio in those days, because you'd break your back collecting out the batteries. And then when the electrified radios come in, everybody bought not the table model, but those big floor models took 2 men to lift, so they couldn't steal that. And that's all we had. Oh yes, we had food. Just on the side, I shouldn't be going inside because you've got a class to go to, but I used to go to the Italian home so I could have the...
While you were on duty?
Foods. No, even when I was a child. And on duty too. I could have the foods that we never had in our kitchen, because the Irish The Irish
They don't have a good reputation for their cooking.
No, the gourmet cooking, you don't find too much of it in Ireland. And you find very little of it here, but the Italians had a beautiful smell to their kitchens. And as a kid, I knew that I'd also get wine, but those Italian women cheat. They used to water the wine. Because I didn't mind once I found out they were watering the wine for their kids, too. And then, of course, when I was a police officer, I wouldn't dare in uniform drink wine, because then I'd lose the respect of the mother and the father, because the policeman was not supposed to drink. They knew the police officers did drink. They had no respect for them. But if I had something to eat in that household, and I said, no, I can't drink because I'm on duty, and the on duty meant that I was carrying a gun, it could affect my thinking, how I'd use it. But ethnically, the lake, Normanton, was Italian and Irish, the same in West Newton. We had a few Protestants. We had a Protestant on Cook Street, and we had one on Faxon Street, and we had one on Dalby Street, and we had a little little congregational church on Chapel Street. And we had 3 Protestants on Bridge Street. Those were ours. We proudly said we had them. And there was no antagonism between the groups. If 2 men fought or had an argument, one might call the other crazy Irish neck, and the term guinea come out a little bit too often. It was a little bit too quick. I can remember when the first Italian man married a girl from Our Lady's who was Irish. Both sides says, my son was dead, my daughter was dead, she married A, he married A, and they had beautiful families. And right now the quote mixed marriages are a way of life rather than the exception.
As a cop, were you ever called in the case of family quarrels?
Oh, yes.
As a mediator?
Oh, yes. And then for a whole year they wouldn't talk to you because you knew too much about the family. That is one of the most dangerous things a policeman, any place in this country, has to do is to mediate. And when I'd go in, they'd say, oh, it's Charlie Feeley, we can't talk in front of him. And I say, well, make up. If there was liquor involved, I'd take him out and take him for a walk. If I was in a cruising car, I'd put him in the car and I'd drive him to the end of the route, or even break the regulation and drive over into the next section and say, here, walk home. Or whether it was Patrick J. whatever, or Angelo something else, you walk back, you'll be nice and sober. And if I'm called at that house again, I'm going to lock you up. Don't keep that wife of yours awake, and keep your damn hands off her. Oh yeah, we had a lot of that. Not so much these days, because divorce is so much easier. Now you fight with your wife, you don't have to belt her around anymore. You just walk out and say, the hell with it, I'm getting a divorce. Go to City Hall, get on welfare. And it is a shame.
Did you have a place where they could dry out, like in the early days?
Oh yes, we had a firehouse down on Watertown Street down in Normanton, and back of it we had a sub-police station with 4 cells. And it was illegal. We'd lock up some guy and then let him out in the morning. But if you locked him up, you're supposed to send him to West Newton and then have the court dismiss him. But if we knew the guy well enough, we'd say, hey, we're going to let you sleep here. And he knew better than to argue, and we'd lock the door. And in the morning when he's sober, he'd say, oh, God, I got to go to work. And I'd say, yeah, I already called your wife. She's got your sandwiches already. Go home and get them. And don't say anything. Just get your sandwiches, and tonight you can talk with them. We did a lot of that. Yeah, we used to hear almost as much as a priest. It's a fact.
As a policeman, did you pal around with your coworkers?
No, a lot of them do. I never did. I didn't want to be talking police work when I was not a policeman. I didn't think everything... Mind you, I didn't want to be a policeman to begin with at that time. And having grown up in a police family, knowing policemen was not a thrill to me. So that when I became a policeman, second-generation policemen don't travel that much with other policemen. It's not like you see on television where we all have to shuck off the stress of the day by going to a bar and drowning and throwing off 10 quick drinks and then going home and abusing the missus. No, I have police friends. And some of them are my best friends. But I never singled them out to be with them. Occasionally we would. But normally, no. My friends remain from both in and outside the department. But that doesn't say every police officer is the same.
Did they have any social activities, though, in like the 40s, like police balls or anything?
Oh, we have an annual police ball, and if you're here next year, you remind me before Thanksgiving, and I'll see that you get a ticket to it. We eventually came to a banquet, and then we have a banquet for the retired men once a year. We have a police memorial breakfast once a year, and that's when we give out our police scholarships. I don't like them because, again, it's for the son or daughter of a policeman or a traffic supervisor or policewoman. And we get together at that time, but in the meantime there are other platoon parties also. I don't particularly recommend them either, but they like them, so they go to them.
What was an affair like that in the 40s, up at the police ball?
Well, we used to have a police ball, and it was at the Armory. In the back room, we'd have a bar. And it was always that you could go in and have a drink. You could bring your wife in and have a drink. And if you didn't have a wife or a girlfriend with you, you didn't get in to have a drink because we felt that the single man would go in and get slapped. Whereas the wife would say, John, you've had enough. You know, you can get 1 or 2 drinks. And before I came on the department, they used to rent tuxedos so they could go. But then we sort of realized that it wasn't really a dress-up affair. And a great many people would join with us in the community and they'd dance. And we always had a quality orchestra. Whatever they had at Totem Pole, we had at the ball. And those would be the name orchestras. Perhaps not the full 24 complement, but we'd have 16 pieces there, and we'd have some entertainment. And then, of course, the policemen started to join other organizations, and, for example, they all get in Little League. Cops went to the Little League banquets, and the Pop Warner banquets. And some of them became very proficient at golfing. Then we'd be going to the golfing banquets. And then the athletic banquets at the high school. So that wherever you went, you ran into a cop that had an interest in whatever was running a banquet. And I particularly like banquets because from this Nonantum area of 18 Italian societies, I personally would do master ceremonies for about 15 of them. Most people down there think I'm half Italian, at least half Italian. And that was a lot of fun. But every time you look out, you see the brother officers there. So we socialize quite a bit, but we don't specialize in having nothing but police friends. Some of my friends are completely crazy, and some of them are very, very bright and brilliant.
A lot of people today look upon, a lot of kids look at cops and they, in disrespect and call them pigs and this. How are you?
We lived through that in the late 60s and early 70s. We understood it all the time because we were the only organization that they were close to. They could hate President Johnson. They could hate Dick Nixon, but they couldn't touch Dick Nixon or President Johnson. And we were the authority figure. And it was wonderful. Everybody likes to tell off a cop. He is authority. You're telling off your mother, your father, your grandfather, your grandmother. You're telling off the parish priest, the minister, and the rabbi. And within certain limits, you could get away with it. No, I never minded the kids referring to the term pig. And I always knew that the administration treated us as such prior to this, because they always underpaid us. And in Newton particularly, we're pretty well respected by the kids. Remember, they've known me since the kindergarten days. They see me in uniform constantly. I eat in the high school cafeteria with the uniform on. But with knife and fork also, but I have the uniform on. And so that they realize that if they park improperly, they're going to get a tag. If they go too fast, they're going to get stopped. If they do something wrong, whether it's Charlie Feeley or someone else, they're going to get bagged for it. They're going to get busted, if the term goes. But everybody used the term pig. Even the nicest people in the town says, how do you like being called a pig? Oh, here comes the pig, and they'd say it in such a nice way, and they were showing that they were skirting it. But I found out early in life that As a police officer, if I had to go in and conduct an investigation, let's say in a house break, I'd be called by the owner, and if I said, well, we still haven't been able to find out who did it, it'd be a little bit better. But if I say, gee, I'm terribly sorry, I just don't have the skills to accomplish what you're looking for. Well, I did grow about 5 inches right before my eyes because I just get through apologizing. There are times when I'll apologize, and there's no reason to apologize, just to make another person feel better, because all of a sudden they feel so damn superior. If I'm on a platform and a person asks me a question, they might ask me my name, and I say, I don't know the answer to that. I'm sorry. I'm terribly sorry, but I'll find out and let you know. I can see that person growing. I've never been on the platform, but I haven't admitted my ignorance, just so the whole audience will feel superior. Of course, 5 minutes later, I can clobber the hell out of them because they're feeling so superior. But it does make them feel good. Everybody likes to call a cop a pig, but we've gone by that. I haven't heard the term pig being used for a long time now. Even at your age, I don't think you've used it. No. Since maybe the 3rd grade. And then you probably tittered to a girlfriend and said, I just call that policeman a pig. But he didn't hear me.
Did your wife ever have any qualms about you being a policeman? You were married before you became a policeman.
She wasn't too thrilled with the idea. And I don't think there's every day I leave the house that she doesn't worry. And I think she'll be very, very pleased the day I leave. But I did tell her some time back, and this is something that you should know, that my chances of survival as I leave this building are far better than any other male that's going to leave it today. Because the death rate for adult males in this country, 4.1 per thousand by weight of violent action. That's either in an automobile accident or being shot dead or someone sticking a knife in them or clubbing them with a baseball bat. But for policemen in this country, it's 5.1. That's one body per 100,000. We are safer than your father, your brothers, or any of your friends in this dormitory. Now, once I told my wife that I'm a little bit safer. Maybe it's because I'm carrying a gun, or maybe it's because I'm aware of the fact that there are people out there that are not nice. Whereas your associates here don't realize that. They think they're in a nice, safe cocoon here. We are at Boston College. But they don't realize that 50 feet east of this building is Brighton, which is part of Boston, which according to the governor is very, very safe, and according to someone running against the governor is very, very dangerous.
That's right.
And we are safer. Incidentally, on that 4.1, that includes you, because they were figuring adult people, not adult males.
Okay.
In order to teach bicycle, I had to learn how to ride a bicycle. I did it at night on the playground. And as I thought back, I realized that when I was doing it after dark, so I wouldn't be embarrassed, I wasn't looking down. And I noticed that the children that I was teaching on the playground were looking down between unsimulated streets between white lines. And they were more anxious to please me than they were to ride safely. So I figured I've got to get rid of the playground operation and take them right on the street, because in order to get to the playground, they had to ride the street. In order to leave the playground, they had to ride the street. And Newton kids were bright. All kids are bright. They're not going to ride on grass when they can ride on pavement, because it's much easier to ride on pavement. And in 1950, we had very few English-style bicycles. We had the American style with the great, big, fat bicycle wheel. And there was agony to pedal. So, in the transition, by that time the snob appeal came in. Everybody had to have an English bicycle. And we had to teach them how to use hand brakes and how to use a signal, stop the bicycle with one wheel. As a matter of fact, the Raleigh people reversed their braking system for us so that we could squeeze the brake caliper with the right hand and signal with the left, because we wanted that brake on the rear wheel. Because if we had it on the front wheel, the child would go right over the front wheel if it broke.
You asked them to?
I wrote them one letter, and the Raleigh people in England, I wrote the letter to their representative here. They sent me back a nice note stating that from now on all bicycles would have the right caliper controlling the rear brake. just one request. And every bicycle coming into America from the Raleigh Industries from that time forward had the rear wheel caliper controlled by the right hand so that we'd be free to use the left hand for signaling to get the automobile driver's eyes to let them know we're going to do something. And so that was the first major step. Second major step was actually getting out onto the street, then going from 30 to 20 to 15, and tying in the mothers and fathers with the training program and the phys ed people. So it was a matter of growth, and I had to learn by mistakes. And I look back, I resented that tremendously because I even criticized myself because I think, without knowing it, I was gambling. I was making a name for myself using, let's say, people like yourself when you were a child. And I didn't realize it until afterward. I thought I was doing the best. I was doing the best in the country for whatever I was doing. But
was this the only program of its kind?
The only program of its type anywhere in the United States. And I was considered somewhat of an idiot, which I didn't mind. I was being an idiot. Who the hell knows what an idiot is? And but I wanted to walk away knowing those kids are going to be a little bit safer. I know that everybody had in the Air Force were a little bit better off because I worked hard. And I wanted these kids to be a little bit better off because I worked hard. And I didn't want to just take the salary. I wanted to work at it and enjoy the work I was doing. So whenever I walked away from a bicycle group, I'll say, those kids are reasonably safe. And one of them is going to live because I'm damn sure I worked hard enough to make sure he is going to live, or she is. I still have that feeling. And I tried to push the program up to other associates of mine, and I still go back and check them carefully. I'm very, very jealous of what I started there, and it's not going to change while I'm still in a position where I can direct it, control it. No, it's the only thing I'm carrying off this job. I'm certainly not carrying off wealth, but I'm going to carry off the fact that this was the best program that was ever devised, and if someone can improve it, I'll hug them and steal it. Because what's best for the kids of this community is going to be best for anyone else that's an adult.
That's
This is an interview with Tom O'Neill, Lieutenant Governor for the state of Massachusetts. Okay. Most of the questions I want to ask you with obviously will deal with the students here and the class of people that will be reading our newspaper. The first and most obvious question is, what do you feel that is... what do you... What do you feel that as governor you can offer the people of Massachusetts that the other candidates cannot?
Well, I think the only, there's a major difference right now, and the major difference between or amongst the candidates is what are the candidates saying? What I'm pushing for is fundamental change in state government to take on those traditional sacred cows, which others in the past have shied away from because it appeared to put full up. I talk about abolishing civil service and its place putting the merit system. I talk about restructuring taxes. And telling people basically, no matter what it is they gave this year, taxes are going up next year. If you do it my way really intends to have the working man alone as well as people on fixed income. I intend to make that issue one that separates the Democrats from the Republicans.
Okay. What I mean is, yes. Let's start at the beginning and go through some of the issues. Okay. The first area, probably the most germane area in the Boston College community, involves your views on the present condition of the education system in Massachusetts, specifically higher education. Given the recent Board of Regent action consolidating schools, while increasing tuition by 17%, and all the other problems that are, from the primary level up. What are your...
Well, my feelings about public higher education is that they can be improved upon. Universities and the state colleges, as well as the community colleges, I think need a better defined mission. I think that our urban universities already just left. Urban universities are not trying to compete with Southeastern Massachusetts University or UMass and Amherst, or for that matter, Harvard, Boston College. I think in a day and age when Ronald Reagan is cutting scholarship and loan assistance, to have a state administration under the leadership of Governor King increasing public higher education tuitions on top of all of that is a little silly. What we have to do is make all of education, public as well as private, as affordable and accessible to as many people as want to go as we possibly can.
Is that a realistic goal?
Well, I think it's certainly more realistic. It's something we ought to talk about. There's no question that the cutbacks coming from Washington, the scholarship and loan assistance must be addressed here at the state level, which means the state government is going to have to pick up a share or a portion of that responsibility to maintain or to take care of the students that want to attend private as well as public higher education. Can they fill the whole vacuum which has been created? No, of course it can't. So therefore there's going to have to be a greater role on the part of the private sector to come in and help establish a pool of funds, both for scholarship assistance as well as loan assistance. And so,
do you think that that's part of a...
As far as public higher education is concerned, again, you must make sure that you have an opportunity not only to keep those doors open and accessible to as many students as you possibly could if you keep it affordable. And I think the rule of thumb is not to increase tuitions automatically as scholarships and loans are being cut back, but to make sure that if indeed it is affordable, then it's something that people can work along with during the course of summer months off, so that they can participate in schools of public education during the school year.
Okay. What are, as far as dealing with that system, the system of education as it stands with the setup of the Board of Regents and all this, and the decision-making power that they have, and you don't see...
I don't agree with that at all. I think the Board of Regents is a disgrace. I think in the last administration you saw a Board of Regents which was geared for private higher education, and you can't have it that way. The current Board of Regents working for state government is a strong bias towards high technology. I think it's high time that we appreciate the fact that we really have to establish how we get from 1982 through the year 2000. Why isn't Isaac Asimov on that board? Telling us what our needs are and making sure that we attach to those needs courses of curriculum in our schools to make sure that once our students finish, after they graduate, after they receive the diploma, they have an opportunity to find a job in the state which is going to help the indigenous growth factor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I think there's an awful lot of planning, an awful lot more flexibility within our public schools of higher education that has to be made, and I think we have to make a greater contribution to education in general, not keeping it at 4% of the overall state budget, but build it up to 10% over the next 5 to 8 years.
Just as a thing, what do you think of the consolidation of Boston State College?
I think it's an inverse neutron bomb. Yeah, I think, except, well, my parallel is that the King administration has greater concern for retaining the buildings than they do about the social contract with other students. And they had accepted into a school of public higher education. And apparently have no concern about that's being finished.
Okay.
That's not to say that public higher education shouldn't be reoriented to a stronger mission. Of course it should. That's going to take time. I can create cosmetic surgery in public higher education by going to UCLA or coming over here and putting out the best professors of mine and putting out a Nobel laureate from Harvard, planting them down on the campus of UMass in Boston. But until those schools create or develop their own Nobel laureates, then those schools haven't been fully accomplished. I want to build public education to a point of excellence and not keep a level of mediocrity which has been allowed to go on here for the last 10, 15 years.
Do you think the public, that the education system as a whole can be that big of a priority.
It has to be.
But in a time when taxes are such a big question.
Of course it has to be. The investment in education in general is the strongest priority that we can have. If the Pilgrims had landed in Savannah, Georgia, as opposed to back in 1620, we'd all be down there at something called Savannah College, looking up here at a vast wilderness. We have to appreciate what a resource base is and our limits. What I find fascinating is that Massachusetts, environmentally it's sound. It has a lot of trees and a lot of fish. But the true natural resource here are our people. And we've got to make sure that they're skilled and trained as we move more quickly and swiftly into the so-called knowledge-based economy.
Let's go back to Reagan's sort of cutback in financial aid. What exactly do you think is the state's role? How do you define exactly what the state is doing?
Well, I think the state's role is to make sure that education in general is working, that it's working in a positively competitive state between public and private higher education. But I think the clear role here is not necessarily to spend more money for the sake of better education, but to make sure that standards are created within our public schools. For example, we have a tragedy in this state, I think, where we allow entirely too many of our students to graduate from high school and they can't read, write, computer number to a ninth grade level. And therefore it has made very active the condition of both private and public higher education, where so much of the first-year student's time is taken up in remedial skills. I don't think that's fair, nor do I think it's truly preparing people for a private sector level skill. I think that the role is to make sure that we have standards in our public schools, starting at the early elementary grades, with basic skills and body of knowledge testing, so that we track them and their deficiencies, and we make sure that once they do graduate and receive a certificate from the state government, they have reached a point of excellent education. Mm-hmm. And I think that has to be within the state government.
Well, but how does that relate to the financial support that the government can do?
Well, you asked me for the real estate government. I told you the real estate government. As far as the role financially of state government is to build, I think, that portion of the state budget from 4% to 10% over a period of 5 to 8 years, number one. Number two, to make sure that those standards are created and to spend our money more deliberately and less destructively in public elementary and high schools in the state, and to take the bias away from the working class man and woman and their children. We distribute monies in Massachusetts to public education. Where basically it's said that if you come from the working class neighborhood of North Cambridge, South Boston, or Oxford, chances are you haven't the ability to learn as greatly as you could if you came from Lexington. And that's just absolute nonsense. We have to make sure that people from our poor per capita neighborhoods are being treated as equally as possible, so that access is given to everybody in an appropriate fashion. As far as a private school like Boston College is concerned, we have 8,400 students over there. There are estimates as high as 50% of the student body of Boston College that get some kind of assistance from government. And it's estimated 30% of those people, 30% of those people, get $2,000 to $3,000 less than they should be getting. And therefore, the pool of students coming in and saying, Boston College is my first choice, as a high school student searching the academic scenery or landscape, that pool is going to drop, I think, dramatically next year. Unless state government comes in and creates a pool of money for scholarship as well as loan assistance. I think there's a thorough question, and that is, can the state of Massachusetts do it all itself? Of course not. There aren't any money trees. But by working with the private sector, I think we can pull a major piece of that gap, or pull a major piece of that gap. The other thing is making sure that our congressional delegation, especially in Washington, continues to fight the good fight, and I'm sure things are going to rage that fight to make sure that you don't have to get concerned about it. We can roll into the schools and Boston College.
Okay. I want to move to...
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that answers exactly what I wanted. Look, I want to move away from...
I'm not taking you in.
No, I can go through my boots anyway. What is your stand on the recently explosive student tenant tax?
Well, I think it's inequality. And I think it was not well thought out, and I think it ought to be dealt with very, very quickly.
Okay, that's something that is indicative of a lot of the the effects of Proposition 2.5. And what is your, why don't you outline for me? Outline for me.
Well, I was one of two statewide officials who took a stand on it. I opposed Prop 2.5. Paul Saunders, I think, was the other statewide elected office holder that opposed it. I opposed it principally for two reasons. Number one, I felt that the people voting for it would be made more frustrated by a body politic that wouldn't perform the way it had to, wouldn't pick itself up and address the challenge. Secondly, I thought that Prop 2.5 was, in its own form, anti-growth. And I can't understand how any thinking mind within a business community can possibly put together something as prominently anti-growth as that proposal was. On the other hand, now it's the beginning of the second year of Prop 2.5. And I don't think you can simply get by saying, okay, cities and towns, go amend it. You don't like it, go amend it. You want to keep a policeman in the town of Reed or a fireman in the firehouse, you go amend it. Don't expect any more assistance from state government. I say that now that we have 2.5, if you were to throw it back at the people and ask them to repeal it or amend it, they're going to say, why should I amend something I gave you? That gets a little silly and it doesn't make a great deal of sense. So what I say is, let's treat 2.5 as a challenge. Here is what we teach in the state government. You can make some savings. We're also going to have to borrow up some new revenues. So the people are recoiling against the property tax. And well, they should. In this case, it's the highest in America. And while we're doing that, why don't we take the whole tax structure and begin to reform it or restructure it? Why don't we get the tax structure working for people as opposed to against them? Why don't we try to keep the property tax down and reduce everybody's income tax across the board? The poor as well as the wealthy. But let's, in order to create that revenue, increase the sales tax. Put it on business and put it on some professional groups and put it on luxury items. And then give everybody in the state a tax credit so that the poorest people from outside the state doing business or utilizing our goods and services to pick up the lion's share of that revenue base. Now, you don't create more revenues from more state government. You give that back to what I call the guaranteed local rate account to keep those property taxes down. So you force state government to work with local governments so that local governments don't have to go back and exasperate the property tax care within the community.
Do you think that
I think we should have serious questions these days about why it is we watch people in our society work all their lives in Massachusetts, save some small amount of money, and then have a tax formation that says go live or retire in Florida now because it's cheaper. That doesn't make any sense. I think that we have a tax formation that says if you sell your small business over home in the state, we're going to give you every reason to go build in a house or go move to the state of New Hampshire. What I want to do is take and reduce all those taxes or eliminate them and just say, if you retire, there's no taxes. If you sell your home, no taxes. If you reinvest it in the state within a period of 18 months, I don't care whether that's in a tuition, in another home, or in a small business. If you keep it in Massachusetts, we won't tax you for it. I think that we ought to take the taxes off savings banks accounts. In other words, I want to help the indigenous growth product of Massachusetts.
Do you think that that outline of that program is something that you're going to be able to solve with the people of Massachusetts?
Well, I don't think, I think if I were, I think it is. I'll turn the tables a little bit because I'm the first candidate come on and say, believe it or not, no matter what you hear from the other candidates, as they tell you they're going to balance the books or reduce your taxes, don't believe them because revenues have to be increased next year. And I'm telling you that right now as a candidate. If you do it my way, we help the working man and woman in the state. And we help our senior citizens on a fixed income. If you do it their way, you have to make at least $50,000 to derive a true economic benefit.
Do you think that that policy is going to force business out of the state and out of an area that is already losing a great deal of big business to the sundial?
Not at all. Not at all. Because the tax that I increase here on business, on professional groups, and on luxury items is much in line with the rest of the industrial states in this country and the way they use or put in place their own sales tax. What I'm saying is, let's protect the workers of our state, and let's protect the benefit and have a business base.
Your stand on civil service is very controversial. Can you just briefly give us a little
Civil service in Massachusetts for our state employees doesn't work. There are good state employees. When they want to work, they can't be rewarded. There's no incentive. If they don't want to work because of our system, you can't weed them out. In order state government, all too often all you have to do is know your local state representative. If you want to get promoted in state government again, you can go back and call your state representative. That's no way to run government. As a matter of fact, if you ask the business community to run their own places of business the same way, they'd all be bankrupt. And what I want to do is to simply say, in its place, let's go to the merit system. If you want to come with the state government, you're going to be qualified. And the most qualified amongst you are going to receive those jobs. If you want to move up the promotional ladder, the same thing. You'll take another test. But I'll give you a system which says, if you do want to work, I'll reward you for it. And then I want to strengthen collective bargaining. And if the labor leaders really value you, good faith. But warn them beforehand that in strengthening collective bargaining, I'm really telling them that I'm coming halfway. I'm providing leadership, but I'm forcing them to be providing leadership to their own membership.
Again, is that a realistic goal to expect, that much from your reps to do it? Being that you're only the leadership, do you think it's realistic for that system to be able to come around to the point that you're anticipating?
Well, I think half the reason for the fatty tissue is that nobody's addressed civil service really. We're one of the few states left in this country that continue to deal with it the same way. Not all the state has as many categories as we have. The category of sheep herd, a lot of UMass owners. Really, except we don't have any sheep. We have 2 hockey coaches out of Amherst. There's no hockey team. Yes, I have 1 or 2 cents about it. 80% of people in state government have never taken a test. They're all there because they're provisional or temporary or confidential. You've got to have a file on that.
Okay. Finally,
Look, I talk about fundamental change not to provoke controversy, but I do want to provoke your thinking. But I want to force a fundamental change based on common sense. If what I say does make ultimate common sense, then let's do it. Even if it means you're going to have to go down to the state house and roll down Beacon Hill. Or if it means you have to take that chair and throw it through that window. People in Beacon Hill are really foreign to change. They protect the status quo. And what our elections is a revolution going on in the state in everywhere that you can imagine. In R&D, in technology, in the polling booth, everywhere but on Beacon Hill. And I just think that the frustration that people are experiencing has to be addressed. And it has to be addressed through change.
Okay. Another student issue. Where does you stand on the battle law?
Sure.
Yeah, and I just want to put that on my list of quickly so I can put it in. Can you just expand on how you think that...
Why am I for it?
Well, not even why you're for it, but what...
Let me tell you something. I'm for it because it cleans up litter. It doesn't knock out a job. It creates more jobs. As other states have shown us. But most importantly, it saves energy. We shouldn't have a state border bill. We ought to have a national border bill. So we shouldn't need any codification out.
You obviously have to endorse it then to the next fight.
Of course I will. And my own feeling is that we have spent in state government entirely too much of the taxpayers' time and energy and money debating the issue.
Most people knew that. What groups do you relate to as your strongest base of support in this election, and how do you think that will affect your campaign?
Working men and women, the average income person, is basically my constituency.
Okay, and how do you think
How do you relate to it? You relate to it by...
What's that going to do in comparison to the other candidates who have the strong base of status quo in business, who seem to have the stronger, who are going for the stronger base in business, right? When you're putting your emphasis toward the working class. You understand?
Well, if they want to represent only business, that's fine.
Okay,
That doesn't make a great deal of sense. I can communicate a message by telling people, by saying such things as, hey, look, revenues are needed next year, taxes are going up, do it my way and we'll try to protect it. I'm a Democrat. The Democratic Party in 1982 does not stand for a great deal. Historically, it built the middle class of this country, and then if we got to represent it, it's about time that we start reflecting those needs right here in this state. There's a taxpayer revolt going on. It's well on the way. And if something isn't done, people are going to take it into their own hands to come team to Boston Harbor. I don't get around about it. Schooling, let's go back to basics. The kids ought to be educated in those public schools, elementary as well as high school. They ought to be prepared better than they are for private, public higher education. We ought to do everything we can to make it as affordable and as accessible as we might. That's our responsibility, and no longer can we afford to turn our back on it. Taxing, they're going up. Do it my way, and we'll try to protect it. We'll keep the property tax increase everybody's income tax. And we're going to get it on a road of progressiveness. That means people will stop beginning to pay taxes according to what their earning power is. Civil service is a signal to people in my mind. State government can run more effectively. It can be streamlined. It doesn't mean you have to get less passionate. But there is body tissue that ought to be carved out. And more state government ought to be running its business. We shouldn't bother around and doing what they're thinking about it. It's not a Republican issue. It's an issue. And it's right. I talk about home ownership. I talk about home ownership because 92% of the public in my state can't afford the mortgage loans. It's something we've got to be doing about it. That means if your pension money is available, public and private, why can't we utilize those for greater home ownership in this state? For the average working man or woman. You have a ban of housing in the city of Boston. Why can't we turn it over to young couples that want it? Why can't we give it to tenant schools? Why can't we give it to developers and get it working? Instead of allowing it to kill the other neighborhood streets. Why can't you start self-help programs? We can do it in Greenfield, Massachusetts. Why can't we do it in Boston?
I appreciate your time. I think you have a lot of good ideas, and I hope that you can get them all together. And I'm not supposed to say that because I'm a journalist, but...
I need to vote. You vote in the state?
Yeah, I do vote in the state.
Well,
I get to talk to everybody by the end of the election, so I'll have really good insight by the end. But I appreciate you, especially talking to us this early. We hope to be in contact with you as the election goes on and some of the issues become more debated and questionable. All righty?
good luck to you.
Thank you.
We were talking about the legislation movement. You don't know about the You know about legislation?
No. Now we all feel like this.
I'll tell you after this.
Okay,
How can you go to a technical school and not know about legislation? No, it's not the black thing. It's the output right movement. The fundamental shift. That's the black thing.
I'm not sure exactly what it is you're asking me. I'm not
You're
asking
asking
you.
I understand that the poll has been followed. The debate has been followed. What's the question?
Oh, okay, I understand the debate has been formalized. Very good, funny. You can make
Finally,
a
the people of the
on
state are
that.
going to have an opportunity to visually see and hear three candidates running or vying for the Democratic Party's nomination. One of those stands up. The debate will be taking place April 20th on one of the major television stations here in the Boston metropolitan Boston area. And I look forward to it. I think it's not only a challenge for the three of us, but it's an opportunity greater still for the people of the Commonwealth to have a crystal clear in their mind what it is all three of us stand for. And I think it's a great vehicle and a great tool to communicate the meaning of this gubernatorial election.
Has the debate been formalized with the other candidates?
Yes, it was.
And you are accepting the...
Not only accepting it, as one of the prime movers of the debate, as someone who originally called for the debate, in an attempt to get distinctions out before the people so that people's idea of me could become more clear, or people's idea of the other two candidates could get more clear. I think that was really very appropriate, so that we begin this gubernatorial election letting people know exactly what O'Neill is saying, what the former governor is saying, what the current governor is saying. I think that's tremendously important, and I certainly hope that everybody will take advantage of it in the state to tune in. I have a lot to say, and I'm sure the other candidates do.
When was it formalized?
It was formalized tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're at the height of the drug agony.
When was that?
It goes back about 10 years now. And the newspapers, the parents were terrified. Kids were enjoying it tremendously. Everybody was bragging that they were taking heroin or letting their parents know about it. And there were some.